So, passing by Mysia, they went down to Troas. And during the night, Paul had a vision. There stood a man of Macedonia, pleading with him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." When he had seen the vision, we immediately tried to cross over to Macedonia, being convinced that God had called us to proclaim the good news to them.
聖靈既然禁止佢哋喺亞西亞講道，佢哋就經過弗呂加、加拉太一帶地方，到咗梅西亞嘅邊境，佢哋就想去呢一個嘅比推尼去。耶穌嘅靈係唔准許，佢哋就越過梅西亞，下到特羅亞去。喺夜晚有一個異象同係喺保羅度出現，有一個馬其頓人企喺佢面前佢話同佢講：請你過到馬其頓嚟幫助我哋。保羅既然看見呢個現象，佢哋就隨即咧去馬其頓，以為咧神咧召我哋去傳福音俾嗰度嘅人聽啦。
The Apostle Paul saw a man from Macedonia in Europe begging him to cross the sea and to preach the gospel in Europe.
使徒保羅夢見有呢一個馬其頓人咧，求佢過海去咧，將福音帶到去嗰邊嘅歐洲嗰邊。
Now praise God, the team understood God's new call and purpose for them, and so the gospel was brought to Europe for the first time, and the rest, as I say, is history.
讚美神，因為保羅同佢嘅團隊知道、明白，亦都願意跟隨上帝嘅呼召，俾佢哋嘅目的，而令到咧歐洲繼續將呢個福音一路傳開去，傳到去世界各地。
What is on your hearts?
喺你心入邊，你有啲乜嘢喺度？
What conviction do you have from God about His purpose for you here in Wally-Ray?
你心入邊喺神裏面有啲乜嘢嘅領受，有啲乜嘢嘅使命？你聽到神同你講啲乜嘢咧？
Especially as the Bolton congregation is formed.
特別係將呢個 Bolton 嘅成立緊呢一個嘅教會嘅時間。
There's no doubt that God calls us.
我哋唔需要否認，因為神係呼召緊我哋去做呢件事。
He has a purpose for this congregation.
但係呢一個堂會亦都有呢個堂會嘅目的。
The question is, are we listening?
問題係我哋係咪聽緊神嘅呼召呢？
Have your leaders captured a vision from God for you?
你哋嘅領袖有冇聽到，亦都願意執行神俾佢哋嘅呼召呢？
Have they shared it with you?
你嘅領袖有冇同你哋分享佢哋嘅呼召嘅內容呢？
There's a very severe word that Jesus speaks to his disciples.
耶穌同佢嘅門徒咧講咗一啲好嚴厲嘅説話。
In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, verses 1 to 2.
喺馬太福音5章1至2節。
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them.
耶穌看見好多嘅人，就上咗山，既已坐下，即係坐低啦。門徒就到佢跟前嚟，佢就開口去教訓佢哋講。
It's the Sermon on the Mount, of course.
當然大家知道呢個係登山寶訓嘅內容。
But not many people notice the setting.
但係可能唔係好多人知個背景喎。
Huge crowds gather to hear Jesus teach.
好多人咧係圍住耶穌，想聽佢講。
But he doesn't want to teach them.
但係其實耶穌唔想教呢一大幫人喎。
Instead, he went away from the crowds to teach the disciples.
耶穌咧走咗上去山上面教佢嘅門徒。
And they followed him and gathered around him.
跟住咧門徒跟住耶穌去，跟住咧係圍住耶穌聽佢講下面嘅
And
説話。
what follows are words for his disciples.
下面嘅説話係講俾佢門徒聽嘅，
Words for you and me.
係講俾你同我聽嘅。
And of course, it begins with the Beatitudes.
當然係由八福開始。
And immediately after the last Beatitude, Jesus says this.
論到最後嗰個八福第八福之後，耶穌跟住就講咗下面呢啲嘅説話。
Verse 13 of chapter 5.
5章13節。
You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It's no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot.
你們是世上的鹽，鹽若失了味，怎能叫它再鹹呢？以後無用，不過丟到外面被人踐踏了。
The last beatitude is a beatitude about witness and outreach.
八福最後一福呢，就係有關於去作見證、去傳福音、去為福音作見證嘅內容。
Verse 11.
喺11節。
Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
人若因我辱罵你們、逼迫你們、捏造各樣壞話、毀謗你們，你們就有福了。應當歡喜快樂，因為你們在天上的賞賜是大的。在你們以前的先知人也是這樣逼迫他們。
If we fail to be witnesses who sow the gospel, we will be like salt that has lost its flavour.
如果我哋唔向人哋去講福音、見證神，我哋就好似啲鹽冇咗鹹味一樣。
Now what good is salt without